Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Important Work. Unless I have decided in hindsight to make this my very first episode, in which case, welcome to my show, Important Work. So I am your host, Chris Angell, and I created this show. I've done a lot of different podcasts, and I wanted to come out to the world with a message about the important work, right? Like in each of us, we have soul work to do, things that are stirring in our soul, and this show is an extension of that for you. It's to champion your soul to do the thing it knows it wants to do. So welcome to the show. I'm here today with my friend, Kelsey Bates. Kelsey, how are you?
So good. How are you, Chris?
So good. You're back in New York, yes?
I am. Yep.
Good. So we're spanning the US right now. We're spanning from Spokane all the way to New York.
Yeah.
You and me. So I asked Kelsey to come on because what I thought I'd do, a lot of the guests I have on the show, I interview about their important work. And what I asked Kelsey to do was come on and interview me about important work. So this is just a conversation, Kelsey, you and I are going to have around like what is important work and whatever other questions come up in our conversation. So where do you want to start our conversation?
Well, how do you, Chris, define important work?
Yes.
What is it?
Yes. What is important work? I love this because I feel like all of us have this stirring in our soul. Like there is it's more than like, and there's an impact, there's a contribution that's made when we do important work. I think almost all important work has some impact beyond yourself. So you may have a job or started a business that was created to make you money. That's why I got into real estate, was actually to make money, right? But there was no impact. There was no important work beyond me having a commission from a sale or transaction. I believe that important work is work that makes humanity better. Makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
That to me is important work.
Now, can you think of when you talk about important work and doing important work, can you think of a time when you really, was it a person, was it an event that really kind of got you on that track to say, you know what, this is something of value versus this is something of not, and kind of pushed you in that track? Yeah. Okay, I want to do important stuff.
That's good. There's as you say that, I feel like this blending of two worlds, right? Like real estate for me I did not jump into that because I was like, I want to make an impact in the world. I jumped into real estate because I didn't know what else I wanted to do, frankly.
Right.
I was thinking like, oh, this is good money. There's freedom, flexibility. There's all this, like, this could be a good lifestyle thing. And as I went further down the road of my career in real estate, I just kept finding myself drawn to conversations of inspiring people, because that's what was coming out of my soul to do in the world. I would teach classes. And as I taught classes about real estate, I'd be wanting to champion people's dreams. I'm like, oh, you have dreams. Like, let's go do those things. So there's this blending of, you can be in certain work, and the reason you got into the work wasn't necessarily to make an impact. But as you're going down the road of that work, I think that sometimes your heart can change and you can find ways to create impact out of the thing that you originally had committed to. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And that may not actually answer your question, but that's what came to mind as you were talking. I'm like, I got into something that wasn't about doing important work. And as I went down the road of it, I discovered there are ways to use this for important work.
Right.
Go back to your question. Do you remember what your question was? Because I feel like I totally sidestepped it.
Is there kind of an event or a person that really changed your life and pushed you towards the important work versus just doing something that's just for the money?
Yeah. An event or a person? I would say that there's no one event or one person, but there are multiple events. It's not like there was no event or no person. There are multiple people and events that have pushed me this direction. For me, wow, I mean, that is a really big question, because I could really go all the way back to high school. I could go back, like there's a lot of, you can look back in your life and find very specific forks in the road where you went one direction instead of the other.
Oh yeah.
That influences how you see the world. In high school, so I didn't grow up in a faith-based home, but in high school, I found some faith um, in a Christian church. And I think that got me thinking about more spiritual things. I get my thinking beyond my existence as a human being, as a person, and then into like, who are these other people, right? Mm-hmm. Got me into a spiritual conversation. And then, and so a lot of my life from high school through just past beyond college was a lot of conversation about, I would ask people, what are you passionate about? I remember on college campus, I would go around with this little month at a glance calendar in my back pocket. And I'd be like, hey, who are you? What do you love in life? Let's grab lunch. I want to hear what you're passionate about. And I would literally just have lunch with people and ask them like, what are you passionate about? Right. And I think that came out of like this interest in people, who they are, what are they made up of? Right. Then I had, in a process of sort of helping grow a Gen X church, got burned in the church, was not a great situation, ended up leaving that church. And I would say now, I don't know I'd even call myself a Christian necessarily. What I would say is my experience of God has expanded beyond that container. And that experience, that event of being burned, moving out, kind of starting, like I had to figure out who I was outside the agreements of outside the Christian agreements of this is who you are and how you live life. I had to start to figure out like, what do I believe? Who am I? And I think that contributed to my path on important work, right? Like, what do I now believe? Like, I noticed there were some common threads from high school all the way to the point where I had gone outside of the church. And there were like, Chris Angell, still had this heart for people. Mm-hmm. You know, you can see the common threads of like, I'm a champion of people. I love people.
Now, when you talk about kind of agreements and like you said, finding yourself outside of what other people tell you, I would say, you know, Chris Angell is one of the most, definitions of authentic. So how would you say you found really your authentic self and really kind of built your brand of who you are, and what is that on? Like, what are your values and how did you come about that?
Yeah, I don't feel like I ever have a list of, I wish I could just say, here are my list of values, right? Like it's always moving, like authenticity's in there somewhere, learning's
always flowing, always
passion.
changing.
Yeah. But if you asked me tomorrow what my values were, I'd probably give you a different list, but they'd all be authentic to things I really value.
Yeah.
How do I find my authentic self? I want to say there's a lot of soul searching that happens for me. There was a lot of soul searching for me of like, what do I really believe? And there are choices you make in life where you're going to choose based on what you feel is true for you versus what's convenient, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you starting to live the most authentic life you can starts to come from you making decisions that are congruent with, this is who I am, and what I do is congruent with who I am, right? Like but if you don't do that, like this is what I do in life and this is who I think I am, and they're not at all overlapping, then there's a lot of incongruence, mm-hmm. which creates inauthenticity, right? You know it's inauthentic because it doesn't feel right to you. Mm-hmm. That's the hard part, is like authenticity. And here's what I think too. I don't think authenticity is like, this is our natural state necessarily.
Okay.
Like we're just always in alignment. I think we're always almost out of alignment and we're always trying to put ourselves back in alignment. Do you know what I mean?
Now, do you think that is, I feel socially, they don't want us to connect with our true self because that's almost an act of rebellion. Do you feel like that's an actual innate fight, is not to be connected to true self, or do you feel like it's outside influences?
It's probably both. I'm sure you could find both outside influences. I think they play together. So like, I love things. I love toys, right? I love cars. I love the idea of having a lake house. Like there are all sorts of external things that I'm like, I want that. And I can find myself going to chase some of those things. Right.
Right.
So that's an external influence, but it's my ego or my personality inside of me that mm-hmm. sort of sees that thing as attractive. Mm-hmm. Right? Like my personality, my ego goes, oh, I really want that. So then I'll go chase that. So I think it's both. The personality doesn't have any fuel to go chase inauthentic things. if there aren't external things to go look at and chase. Like that's the whole experience of life school in your 80 to 100 years of life on this planet, is you get to kind of experience all this contrast and all this change and see what things you like and don't like. That's part of the experience, is trying stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And seeing what fits and doesn't fit.
Now, how do you find that balance between contributing and experiencing? Because I think if you only contribute, then you're not living what you're supposed to do as far as here is experiencing the life. But if you're only experiencing, then you're not contributing. How do you seem to find that balance?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I can see, because in the context of important work could just sound like it's all about contributing.
Right.
Right. I think so the question is, how do we balance those two? That's the question, right?
Yeah.
It's good. What's coming to mind is, that whole thing about like, I have multiple metaphors running through my head. There's the whole like oxygen mask on an airplane thing. Like you got to put your mask on first.
Yeah.
Right? I think sometimes in life you have to, or there's the thing about like, your cup has to overflow with love. You have to fill your own cup and love yourself first before you can spill over and not have that love reach other people. I think before you can have a contribution in other people's lives and feel terrible about yourself. That's true. That's a true statement. Right. There are people that will, out of whatever their personality is tied up in, whatever things they're trying to overcome in their life, they can still go out and make a difference. But I think that experiencing life is one of the gifts we get while we're here. So a lot of that comes for me in validating or saying or acknowledging what feels true to me. So I'll give you an example. This is really good. This is super fresh. Fresh off the press for me. I will catch myself now in life, this morning, I will catch myself in a certain posture, like a physical posture that one would have if they had been beat up by life, right? Or were exhausted, right? So this morning I wake up and I'm on my pillow, and the way I'm laying on my pillow is like, I just had some massive rage or something, like, I don't know, like I am beat up from the day before.
Yeah.
And the feelings that posture gives me is, dude, not another day. Please, not another day. Can I just have a break? Can I just not do this?
Yeah.
That was this morning, right? And so my experiencing of life in that moment was coming from this posture and this feeling I had, this mindset I had. And so what I've been practicing now is reframing the posture, saying, I actually will say, I am not in this posture because life has beaten me up and I'm exhausted. I'm in this posture because I'm building something important. I'm trying to reframe how it feels so that my experience in the moment of life is giving me fuel, not draining me, right? And then I think from that place of experiencing life, I can go out and make a contribution that actually feels more empowering than one that feels exhausting.
I love that.
That makes sense?
Absolutely. Now, you kind of brought in faith and spirituality. Do you think that all important work is kind of driven from some sort of faith or outside influence, whether it's God or anything else? Can you separate the two?
I think where I land in that, and this is just my interpretation of it, is that love is a spiritual conversation, right? There is no thing called, I can't hold love in my hand. There's a thing called love. And I think most people would agree that that is a thing. And I think that love has its own fingerprint. Like there are things that you can tell what love looks like. Yeah. Because it's universal. It transcends language and culture. Like love, you can see love when you see love. So in that, I think that important work comes from love. To me, important work comes from love. And I don't care if you call that like God or the universe, or you call, or there is no spiritual faith-based context for that. But I believe that important work comes when you see a difference out here to make a difference for others. Like I want to make a difference for others. That the source of that is love. And that's a spiritual conversation for me.
That's absolutely beautiful. I love that.
Do you listen to shows like this and think, I could totally do that? You have a longing to connect more genuinely with your community and have a platform where you can play a bigger game. But you never start because either the tech's overwhelming or you don't want more work on your plate, or maybe you're not exactly sure what you would say. Yet you know you have really important things to share. This is why we created a done-for-you content marketing service, helping you give life to the conversations in your head to grow your business and your impact. Learn more at mygroundswell.com.
What sort of impact, what is your grand scheme goal of what kind of impact do you want to have on the world with the important work and with helping others create important work?
Yeah, so good. Well, as best I understand it in this moment, right? Because I think as you go through life, you get different, you get access to different ways it looks. And then the more you go down the path, the more the vision unfolds. So for me right now, I love business. So the conversation of business is important to me because I think from business comes resources, and with resources, you can expand your reach and your impact. So I have an agency, a marketing agency, that what we do is we create web shows for clients. And the kind of clients I like to work with are clients that have important work. So what we do is we interview them for their show. And out of that show, we produce it. So we'll put, music to it, intros and outros. We'll share it to their YouTube channel, their Facebook page. We'll write an email for their database. We'll write a blog post for every episode, and we'll push it out to as a podcast to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, etc. To have 300 in my most immediate vision, to have 300 businesses that have important work in the world and need to get their message out, that we could help produce 300 shows, right? For businesses that have important work in the world, that would create, as you can see back here on this TV screen, that would create a groundswell, right, of impact in the world. That is, at this point, that is my current vision. And I think, beyond 300, there are more than 300 businesses that want to make an impact. So I'm sure we can grow from there. But that in itself can be my life's work. I could spend my time from now, I'm 42 now, until the day I die, doing that work, right? Giving other people a platform to put their message out in the world.
Yeah. Now you just referenced Groundswell. What exactly is Groundswell, and how did you come up with that?
Yeah, it's funny. So it's the name of my company, Groundswell Business Consulting. And I hired a company to help me create a name, because the name I had, it's always hard when if you're a creative person, like you can have a lot of ideas and you sort of like some, and sometimes you don't like them at the same time. You're like, nah, I don't know. It's not good. It's not that good. And I was just feeling that way about the name. I think as a real estate agent, I probably had like 6 business cards in 2 years because I kept changing the name of my real estate company. I was just, it was weird. So I hired a company. They walked me through some different questions. And one of the things they said that I kept saying was groundswell, or that one of the words I had used was groundswell. So they presented me with, here's a name, Groundswell. It came from what you said. And I was like, I kind of like it. Like, I love the metaphor of it. So it's my company. That's how I got it. And I love what it now stands for me.
Yeah, I love it. So just something I'm curious about. I very much believe in habits and rituals. What are some things that you do on a daily basis that help you feel successful, or that are creating success for you?
Yeah, rituals are good. I've journaled for a long time. Journaling's been something I've done since 1998, right, when I was in college.
Oh, wow. Do you journal about just business stuff, personal stuff, all of it?
It's just all of it. There's no, like journaling for me is a place I go to think. So like a lot of times in journaling, I'll ask a question.
Yeah.
What am I trying to accomplish? Or what is this all for? Why am I doing this? And then I'll actually have the conversation, right? I'll actually answer my question by trying to get stuff out of my head.
I think we don't ask ourselves enough questions. I love that.
Yeah. There's one I've stumbled into recently within the last year and a half or two called Active Imagination. And I learned it from one of my coaches, Jeffrey Van Dyke. And it actually came from, I think, Carl Jung, but it's like a conversation you can have with yourself. So you ask yourself a question, and then and then what I do is and I type this out because I can type faster than I write. So actually, like, will ask myself, when I want counsel, when I want like wisdom
Yeah.
that I can't seem to access because my monkey brain is going around and around, I'll ask a question like, what's important about what I do next? And then I'll just wait with my fingers on my keyboard, and I'll just be like, I'm waiting for, I usually wait for like, it comes through as like a repeating phrase, like, or an image in my head. Like the answer is the thing that keeps coming back to me.
Yeah.
And then I'll just start typing out like whatever is coming to me in my mind about the answer. So I love that too, because that helps me kind of stay connected to what's true.
Mm-hmm. Your true authentic self. I love that. Okay.
Yeah. Like, and you can tell, like, you can tell when something feels like it's coming from wisdom and love versus coming from like, logistics and like tactical and all that. So, you can tell pretty quickly if what's coming through feels right with your soul. Yeah. Feels authentic and congruent with your soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So journal. So that's a big thing for you. What else do you do on a daily basis?
Some funny ones, like I know it's funny, but like stretching, I found like puts me back in my body. So I'll wake up, sometimes my joints are stiff, my muscles are sore, whatever. Right. And I'll just do 3 yoga poses. I'll do like 3 sun salutation type stuff. It's not long, but what's funny is like, it puts me back in my body and my brain shifts and all that's all good. So I like that. Mm-hmm. That's a good one for me. I've started to, one of the things I've wanted to do coming into my everyday I live is like coming from a place of certainty. I think when you're an entrepreneur, well, look, when you're a human, let's just say when you're a human, there's a lot of things in life, a lot of thoughts you have that have you feel uncertain, right? Uncertain about what I have to do today, uncertain about my relationships, uncertain about my money, uncertain about all the things we're uncertain about. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't feel good to live from that place. So what I've started to do is in my journaling, I will actually write down, of this, I am certain, right? Of this, I am certain, ... And then I just start to go through my mind of what I'm certain about.
And I think in entrepreneurship, I love that you brought up certainty, because that's one amazing thing. And one huge fear of being an entrepreneur is that you don't know. I mean, it's all a risk, beautiful, wonderful, loving risks. And, there's a lot of, a lot of scary risks too. Yeah. And to overcome that certainty, I think that's absolutely brilliant that you bring that up. And it's so important to talk about with entrepreneurship. Yeah.
I think that's one of the things. So like when you're talking earlier, like how do we get to that place and live from an authentic place? I think a lot of times, like, that's what I mean. Like a lot of life is just seeing how you're not in alignment. Like, I've been having these conversations. I've been journaling since 98, and I've had these conversations of authenticity for decades now. And how is it that I wake up every day feeling uncertain, right? Like that's so bizarre, right? Yeah. And I think sometimes people think, oh, well, we just have to, I'm not there yet. I don't have it all figured out. Other people have it figured out, but I don't have it figured out. And
do you think you ever have it figured out though?
Well, I think that's the thing. It's like when you get to the place of, I mean, yeah, it's a good question, but when you get to the place of certainty, when you can say, of this, I'm certain, that I have figured out. That, like the things I'm certain about, I have that figured out. And if I can live from that, I don't have everything figured out, and I'm not a know-it-all, but of the things I'm certain, I got that figured out. And if I can live from that place, then I can experience, back to your experience question, I can experience life in a way that actually feels content. Then experiencing life is a thing that feels incomplete. Yeah. Right. So anyway, I think what's important, maybe I'll tie it up with this here. Is I think what's important about important work is that it comes from inside of you. Important work is not tactical and it's not logistical. There is logistics and tactics that come with it, but that's not the source of it. It's not some good idea you had. That's right. Like it's important work is the thing that your soul wants to do. It's the impact over there you want to make. And you can do it through a nonprofit. You could do it through a for-profit. You could do it through the job you have. But ultimately, important work is the thing your soul is trying to contribute out here to raise the level or expand the consciousness of humanity. That's important work.
And what I'm hearing is it doesn't matter what the work is when it comes from that place of love, that inspiration, and when you're really trying to contribute outside yourself. Yeah. That's what I hear from you that really encompasses important work.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what it is. And your soul has I think your soul has a very specific idea of what it wants to do, right? So it's not anything. You can
Mm-hmm.
do anything from a place of love, and that's good work. Like that is good juju to put out in the world, right?
Yeah.
But I also believe that that important work is very specific to your soul. Like your soul will, if you can listen enough, your soul will tell you what it wants to do. It'll give you little clues, little glimpses, coincidences, serendipities. Like you'll find these things that are patterns and common threads for you.
Mm-hmm.
That if you look, you'll notice, you're like, this is what my soul wants to do. And it's very specific, right? Very specific.
Yeah.
And that's why I think journaling, going back to like, what are some of the habits? That's why I think journaling and any sort of introspection is important for you to find your important work, because it requires that you listen.
Yeah. And that takes courage, because not a whole lot of people are willing to do that and talk to themselves and listen to themselves and really know themselves.
Yeah. Right. And so you're right. So good. It takes courage. And that's the sticky part of this whole process, is that we can call that a double bind. We go, on one hand, I want to live my life in a way that means something. Mm-hmm. It matters. It fills my soul. When I do this type of work, I'm filled up, right? Like we want that.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, we don't want to lose security. We don't want to like have the unknown. So we're like, we want both of these things, and we're pulled in both directions, and we don't commit to either. Like we sort of commit to the job, but then we resent it. Mm-hmm. I sort of step my toe in the water to pursue what I feel my soul is doing. But then when things get questionable, I come back quickly to my predictable environment. And most of us, I think, live our life in this really uncomfortable double bind all the way to death. Right? All the way till you die. Like, congratulations, you didn't commit to either one, right? Yeah. And this is why we sedate. This is why we sedate as human beings. Whatever your vice is, we use liquor, drugs, sex, relationships, codependency, whatever it is, we'll find things to medicate. Mm-hmm. So we don't have to like choose, or so that we can survive in the thing that feels safe, but we hate ourselves for it. And we don't have to commit to the thing that's really scary, but our soul really wants to do.
Yeah. I really think that, when you talk about vices and you talk about, say, or that numbing, we're running both from our greatness and our shame. And I think that's exactly what you were talking about, because we know that this is our passion and this is what our soul wants and this is what we're here to do, but we're too afraid. And so we have to have this security. We have to have this. And so we're afraid of our greatness, but we're also afraid of our shame.
That's deep. I love that. That's so good. That is so good. Man, we could just keep rapping about this, because I think the weird part about shame is that until you confront it, until you can stare it in the face and it has no power, it just lives in the shadows and undermines the things you do. Like shame erodes your experience of life. It erodes your confidence. It erodes your decision-making. And because that's uncomfortable to go confront shame. Yeah. It just keeps living in the background, talking to you, right? And influencing your decisions. But when you can go down in the shadows and stare shame in the face to the point where it no longer has power over you, you start to rise as someone new. You start to make decisions that you otherwise would not have made, because shame no longer has a hold on you, That's
amazing. Yeah. Yeah. And
it's so good.
We're not taught to do that. We're not taught to even think about these sort of things.
Right. A great book that I read it and I think I cried in every chapter. Yeah. It was just so confronting. It wasn't like a good love story cry. It was you see into my soul and my pain and you're healing it. Was the book called The Heart of the Soul from Gary Zukav. It's called The Heart of the Soul.
Is that the one you just were reading?
I was just reading The Seat of the Soul from Gary Zukav, and The Heart of the Soul. The Seat of the Soul is, for me, a lot deeper. It's harder to get into, although it's really good stuff. But The Heart of the Soul, just like, I don't know, maybe it was good timing. It just hit me where I was at. But it really gets into like the healing of your heart. And I think sometimes shame is part of one of the things that is tainting our heart, right? Lives in the shadows, but The Heart of the Soul, amazing. Love that.
So the last thing that I
Yeah.
have is, if you had one thing to tell all of humanity, what would that one be?
Oh. Whoa.
That's
Kelsey,
hard.
that's so hard. I'm like, what is that? What is that? What is that one thing?
I know.
Okay, well, let me say, I'll say it this way in the context of this show. Like, I really believe everybody has important work. Everybody, you listening to this have important work. Your soul is trying to communicate what that important work is to you, and that important work is very specific. It's not anything. It's very specific. And you can't get it wrong. Like, it's not like, right, like, I'm not saying it's specific in that you should like now be fearful of, because now we're back to the shadow stuff, right? Oh, well, what if I do it wrong? Well, that's not it either. But you have very specific things, and the place to look is the stuff that lights you up, the stuff that makes your heart sing, the stuff that gives you life, that when you do it, you feel strong. Like, those are all clues to your life's work, to your important work. And what would this world look like? What would this world look like if everybody was engaged in their important work, right? Not their personality stuff and not the wants and needs, like none of that stuff. Like, what if we were just all engaged in the important stuff that our soul is telling us to do? That would be an incredible, I would want to have lunch with everybody to bring this full circle. I'd want to have lunch with everybody and be like, what are you passionate about?
So many lunches.
What is your important work in the world? Yes, I want to know, because I'm so fascinated by what is in people's souls to create in the world. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you for interviewing me on my own show. And it's sometimes it's easier. This is, by the way, this is how I'll wind this up for you guys, but it's easier to be interviewed sometimes and have people ask you questions, as Kelsey did today. Thank you, Kelsey. Right. Because it's so much, it's easier to do that and share what's in your soul than it is to stare into a camera by yourself and be like, what am I supposed to say to this camera right here? I don't know, like, take 20. So that's why we created the agency work. Was we realized that if we could interview you about your important work and pull out of you the things that are in your soul to say, that you getting your consistent message out in the world would be so much easier than you staring into a camera. And so that's why we did exactly what Kelsey's doing for me right now, which is interviewing you on your show. So if you guys want to learn more about the agency work that we do to help you get your important work in the world, you can go to contentthatconnects.us, not .com, but contentthatconnects.us. And you'll see on that landing page, there's a description of the service. You can click the apply button and fill out a quick application, et cetera. So Kelsey, thank you. I hope we can do this again because I loved your questions. First of all, last of all, I love that you are a deep human being. Like, you guys should all know that Kelsey has this hashtag thing. She says, my deliberate life. And she is I was going to say a bulldozer of confidence. Like, I just love your posts on Facebook are awesome. Like, you just show up with so much swag in your posts and it breeds like confidence. And I'm like, yes, I love what she just posted. Like, God, I think you guys should check out, you guys should check out Kelsey's stuff. But I just think when we all live from that place, it encourages each other in our own pursuits. So thank you for being that person in the world and joining me on my show today.
Thank you so much, Chris.
See ya. Do you have important work in the world? We can help you produce a show just like this one and get your message out in the world. Go to mygroundswell.com to connect with us now.